On Sunday night, Twitter's pro-censorship CEO, Parag Agrawal, told Twitter employees to brace for Musk's attempt at a hostile takeover. He also strongly implied that Twitter will not submit unless forced. Quote, "There will be distractions ahead, but our goals and priorities remain unchanged." So you have to ask yourself, how exactly would Twitter, which is a public company, fight off a hostile takeover from the richest guy in the world? And already you can see the strategy to keep Elon Musk at bay. First, Twitter is enlisting the help of corporate media. Now, corporate media stands to lose at least as much as the Democratic Party will lose if Twitter is liberated. Competition is terrible for the mediocre and the illegitimate. So MSNBC understands this intuitively, even the airheads who read the scripts on the air, and so they were the first to answer the call. What did they do? You know exactly what they did. They did what they always do. They called Elon Musk a racist. Watch.
Fear not, right-wingers. Another bro-fascist is waiting in the wings to defend your right to spew bile online in the name of free speech. And that is coming up next.
He is building in Tesla a documentedly racist company that perhaps reminds him, gives him nostalgic memories of apartheid South Africa where he grew up. He's more than that, an embodiment of what I would say is Twitter's biggest strategic problem, which is a hostile, cruel, dangerous online environment, especially for women, especially for people of color, women of color in particular.
we can bore you with a rebuttal to the ludicrous explanation you just heard, but it's not necessary. If you have an IQ above room temperature, you laugh at it. That's the lowest brow propaganda possible. It's all MSNBC is capable of. He's a racist. Ignore him. But at the Washington Post, they served up something slightly different, a little more stealthy. They enlisted the former CEO of Reddit, an activist mediocrity called Ellen Pao, who couldn't manage to actually run Reddit, to write an op-ed with this title, quote, "Elon Musk's vision of free speech will be bad for Twitter." And then the piece contained this line. Now, this line doesn't so much reveal a lack of self-awareness as it does commit murder against the entire concept they're trying to support. And here's what it is, quote, "Musk's appointment to Twitter's board shows that we need regulation of social media platforms to prevent rich people from controlling our channels of communication." Now, once again, this ran in the Washington Post, a paper that apparently, unbeknownst to the editors who work there, is owned by billionaire oligarch Jeff Bezos, China's biggest retailer, and used as his personal platform to lobby the federal government and settle scores. So Jeff Bezos can own the only news gathering operation in your nation's capital and use it for business and ideological ends, but the idea of letting average people say what they want on Twitter is a threat to democracy. And if you think that's hilarious, you should read the piece in The Guardian. It was written by former Labor Secretary Robert Reich, a little Stalinist. Quote, "Elon Musk's vision for the internet is dangerous nonsense." And the subhead read this way, quote, "Musk has long advocated for a libertarian vision of an uncontrolled internet. That's also the dream of every dictator, strongman, and demagogue." Right. So what dictators, strongmen, and demagogues want is the people over whom they rule to say whatever they want and to challenge their power. That's kind of the way dictatorships work. Isn't that right, Robert Reich? The funny thing is, Robert Reich is a lifelong leftist, now pushing 80. You can imagine the Robert Reich of, say, 1970, when he was a little college advocate, would be a little bit surprised to see the Robert Reich of nearly 80 calling for a total crackdown on the opinions of ordinary people. But, you know, people get power and they change. But that doesn't make any sense as an argument. So you can see why they stick to calling Elon Musk a racist on cable news. They just stick to the same old script. And that's what they're doing at CNN. Of course, watch.
I think in some ways it's a good thing that Elon is out there tweeting, livening up Twitter, making it more entertaining. As Kara said, he's a funny guy. But there are serious questions behind that. What happens next? Does he push for a full acquisition? We don't know.
Yeah, and maybe he's just in it for the lulz. But some of the memes he posts on Twitter, anti-trans memes, anti-COVID vaccine memes, there's a reason to be skeptical, I think, here.
No anti-COVID. He asked questions about the mandatory COVID vaccine. Crush him. No one's won over by this. It's absurd. So clearly that propaganda strategy will not win open minds to the side of censorship. In fact, it's impossible to win open minds to the side of censorship because the idea is repugnant to any free spirit. So there's other tools that Twitter's going to have to use to stop a hostile takeover on behalf of free speech. So, for example, it's virtually certain that Twitter is on the phone now with corporate lawyers in New York, finding ways to use what's known as a poison pill strategy to minimize Elon Musk's ownership stake as much as it possibly can. One option, and this would be really interesting, is to give Twitter shareholders the ability to buy many more shares at a discount to dilute Musk's control over the company. But that strategy is not guaranteed to work. Musk himself has a ton of options aside from buying all the shares he wants. For example, and you might think of this, Elon Musk could enlist the public, the pro-free speech public, in his hostile takeover of Twitter. So anyone who is against censorship could buy Twitter stock and then pledge his or her proxy votes to Elon Musk. And that would give him control of the company, and the company would be free. That would also be the single most revolutionary event ever to take place in the history of finance. It'd be pretty thrilling to watch, and it might work. Maybe he'll try it.